Good mid-morning, everyone in the Spark Nation. This is Grant Sparks. This is Marketing Nudge number 21. For the longest time, we were doing marketing nudges, and I feel like it was helping a lot of the Spark Sites clients, the Goals and Gratitude group. A lot of different folks were taking our advice and moving on their marketing. And I wanted to start this series if I could, or I'm trying to restart the series because I think it's super important, A, that you have a line of communication with your audience or potential audience or existing clients so that they know that the lights are on. But B, you need to be cultivating your story. And part of marketing is storytelling, it's relatability. So this is Marketing Nudge 21, turning your biggest business mistake into your greatest connection tool. I am passionate about this topic because I believe so many business owners are getting really mediocre advice at best because they're getting advice that seems not flawed. It doesn't seem authentic. It seems like the gurus out there have really done everything right in their business journey. And so from a marketing perspective, it's often hard to relate to their marketing. And so today, my marketing nudge for you today is centered around, we're going to do several things. We're going to tell you 3 quick elements to storytelling. I'm going to share my biggest business blunder very quickly as an example of how you can share your biggest business blunder and turn it into a connection tool with your audience. So number 1, do you want to know the secret to building an audience that trusts you, truly trusts you? And it's not by having all the answers. Nearly all of your followers, all of your clients, they know they can get answers from ChatGPT, from a Google search. We have omniscience now, but they don't implicitly trust the information they're getting because is it the latest and greatest? So they're still going to the human audience. In fact, we're seeing, even though that we are doubling down as a company with AI and automations, we're still seeing a massive draw towards people just going to the source, going to you for answers for your business, for your service, for your professional background, because they truly trust you. But how do you get people to truly trust you? To share your biggest mistake. If they can know your biggest business mistake, or if you're a coach for a specific topic, your biggest mistake in that topic, they know that you've hit bottom and have made your way out. And that's relatable. Oftentimes we hear this in content creation, be relatable, be relatable. It's very difficult to actually know what the heck that actually is supposed to mean. What does it mean to be relatable? The quickest shortcut to relatability is to share your biggest mistake as often as possible. And I'm going to do that favor with you. So today I'm going to share with you how my biggest mistake basically became a way that I relate to people, especially my business coaching clients and my marketing coaching clients, and how this can be yours too. So really quickly, we all know that the audience is craving authenticity. We don't know how to, like I said, we don't know how to like be authentic. And so here's my authentic story. This really happened. For those of you who don't know, and I'm just going to do this in 30 seconds or less. For those of you who don't know, we started our business journey moving off of the missionary field, leaving our church and our faith and starting our life over back in the United States as a small business. And our premise was this: we were still passionate about humanitarian development work. So our premise was, we see that a lot of missionary and humanitarian organizations have some of the worst websites, though they're doing some of the most noble work. How can we do websites for them? And we decided, let's do websites cheap or nearly free, get their hosting fee. We would win on the long term because we would get their hosting fee and they would just be with us for years and years on end, which has proven true. And we can just eat as much of that upfront payment as possible. So we were doing websites. We started literally, I'm not kidding, starting doing websites in 2015 for $500. Then we were doing it for $750. And eventually we kind of paused at around $1,100 for custom websites for these nonprofits. And we grew, and that was fantastic. But there was a problem. We had so much demand. I was selling some months 10 and 15 websites that month. And we were loving it because that monthly fee was coming in. Our monthly hosting fee was growing every single month, kind of like an annuity or passive income. That was growing every month. But my design team at the time, that was Marissa, my partner. That was Jenna. She was working with us at the time before she was even married, I believe. And we had that team and we needed more help because we were growing fastly, but we couldn't hire anyone. And we were racking our brains. Well, how are we growing so much, but we can't hire anyone? And the answer was very obvious, because you're charging too little. Now, we enjoyed increasing our monthly recurring revenue by that 25, and we were moving our monthly hosting up to $30 and then $50 a month. It was growing. We were like, yeah, this is awesome. But we didn't want to increase the price of the website itself, because we were afraid we were going to drop from 10 website sales a month. We were going to drop dramatically. And people kept saying, our mentors kept saying, increase your rate by double. Go from $1,000 a month to $2,200 a month. And my fear was, well, we're going to lose all these clients. And we held on, and I'm not kidding, for 18 months. My team was pulling out their hair. They wanted to quit, because we were growing, literally growing 40% a year at that time. It was rapid growth. And finally, I relented through difficult conversations, troubles in my marriage over this. Like, there was very difficult things going on. And finally, I relented and said, let's increase the price. We increased the price to $2,200. Now, what you want the story to say is, we suddenly dropped that websites in half. We went from 10 websites to 5 websites a month, but we're still doing the same revenue, and we could do it with the same size team. That's not what happened at all. We lost nearly all of our business. But that caused us to reset in general. We didn't back off that $2,200 mark. We dropped to about 2 websites a month. Now, if you're doing the math, you're realizing we're not making nearly as much money. No, but my team was stabilizing. They were happy. So the lesson learned isn't to double your prices. That's not the lesson, though you think it is. The lesson is to increase your prices. But really, the lesson is to listen to your team, because a stable team was worth the initial dollar loss. Because then we did start building back up. We were able to train the team on new skills, because there was new web technologies coming out. There was tons of new stuff happening that we needed to upgrade and upskill the team. We were able to invest in time into that. We were able to put out higher quality. And then in about 3 to 6 months, we were then selling about 3 to 4 websites a month at the new rate. So we slowly built it back up. No, it is not a silver bullet to raise your prices. In fact, I'm still gun shy to this day to raise my prices. But the lesson of trusting my team was irreplaceable. They were wrong about the premise. Hey, we're going to be just as many. We're going to do just as much revenue. That's not true. We didn't. But they were happier. They had a suspicion of something. Now, pause on the storytelling. I told you this story. This was a big mistake I made. I let it go way too long. I frustrated my team for literally about 18 months. But we did make that change. So I told you this story. I told you how it changed my relationship with my people. Now, really relaying that makes me more vulnerable to you. You were interested in hearing this story. So here's 3 keys I'm going to give you real quick on authentic storytelling. Number 1, be authentically vulnerable. Share the real emotions. I was frustrated. They were frustrated. It caused troubles in my marriage. That's a relatable thing. That's a relatable thing. This isn't a sanitized version where everything was pristine and I finally relented. No, we were arguing quite often. My team would go home in tears. You're growing. Why are they upset? They're getting paid more. They were. Why are they upset? Because it was hard and it was frustrating. There was no end in sight. This isn't about fishing for sympathy, but demonstrating you've learned your lesson, demonstrating growth. Super important when you're storytelling. So authentic vulnerability when you're storytelling. Tell the most difficult version of the story that you can stomach. That's number 1. Number 2, clearly articulate the lesson. Clearly extract what you learned. And I told you, I didn't learn to raise my prices. That wasn't the lesson. I very clearly said that to you. What I said was, we learned this other lesson instead. You expect me to tell you, we learned to double your prices and everything's going to be happy overnight. No, there was drama involved. And you're like, well, what did you learn? So you're leaning in and you're listening further. What's that real lesson? And the real lesson was to listen to your team. Trust your team. And they were even wrong in their premise, but they have a suspicion of something good. That's the lesson. So when you tell a story, make sure you clearly articulate the lesson learned. If you just tell a story, they're waiting for resolution. And quite often, the lesson you learned is the resolution. If you don't know how to end a story well, and everyone lived happily ever after. If you don't know how to end a story well, end it by telling them what you learned. Therefore, I learned X, Y, and Z. That's great storytelling. And then a transformation framework of some time. You show the before and after. Before we were doing this many sales, but people were upset. After we were able to upskill the team. You heard me tell that part of the story. We were able to educate the team and support them. You were able to hear me tell the before and after. And it wasn't all rosy. We weren't suddenly doing same revenue with half the work. No way. We still had to hustle for that sale. But you did see a before and after, a transformation of some kind. And then you probably heard how this mistake basically changed our current approach. So, all that background to say a little bit of storytelling education in today's Marketing Nudge 21. I'm going to encourage you to share your most vulnerable moment because this is the way you connect to an audience. Use my little tools there: authentic vulnerability, clear lesson extraction, and transformation network. Show me the before and after. So here's your takeaways. Number one, identify your biggest teachable mistake. Not all your mistakes are teachable. Some of them are just pain. I trusted an employee with the money. They stole the money. I learned to never do that again. Some of that might be a little too intense for your audience. I lost my entire family to X, Y. That might be a little too much, but it's your biggest teachable mistake. Number two, create content, sharing it within the next few days. We do this marketing nudges several times a week. Take time between now and the next marketing nudge, 3 to 5 days. Make time this week to share this content. You can just turn your camera on, connect to Facebook, turn your cell phone on, and connect to Instagram or whatever audience and just tell the story. Then track engagement. Like right now, I told you a story, and guess what? I'm not kidding. I'm looking at these numbers right here in Restream. I have more views on this stream, especially when I was telling my story. I have more views than I've had on the Grant Sparks show on Monday morning at 6:40. That's an interesting metric. It's a marketing nudge. Maybe it was the name. Maybe it was the time of day. Maybe it was the setup or the lighting. I'm not really sure what it was. I get to look. I'm going to look closer at it to see what the difference is. But I suspect there's something about the vulnerability and the connection going on that saw a spike in some of those metrics during that moment when you tell people a decent story. And then I want you to consider making your mistake sharing a regular part of your content strategy. Hey guys, this is the big, for example, pop open your camera. The minute you make a mistake, fix the mistake first in your business. And then to land the lesson home, remember, you don't learn a lesson until you finally taught that lesson, right? That's just education 101. So the minute in your business you identify a mistake and then you fix it with the customer or the client, open up your camera and the first opportunity. Hey guys, I just came from an on-site with my client and I realized that I had made this mistake. They called it to my attention. I was super embarrassed. I felt embarrassed for them. I felt so bad. So here's how I tried to make it right. Here's what you can learn. Here's the before and after. Do that sort of thing instantly and make it a regular part of your marketing. So that's today's marketing nudge. And here's the conclusion. This is it. When you share mistakes authentically, you build radical trust with the audience. They can come to you as a voice of someone who's not going to gatekeep. You're not going to hide. You're not going to make everything picture perfect. I don't use filters. People can just see it for what it is. This background, we're redoing the studio and the lighting looks great. The camera looks great, but the background looks a little janky. We're just going to still go live the way we are because there's some authenticity. You're going to hear it raw from that guy. Hey, you want the raw truth? This guy's going to tell you at least what he knows in his limited capacity. The other thing is it positions you as a relatable human, which is a premium these days. I cannot tell you how many posts, how many captions, how much content feels absolutely rehearsed. And you're like, I know that's from freaking ChatGPT. And if it even is from ChatGPT, you can be a performer and still deliver a good script from ChatGPT and deliver it from your heart and your soul, and it feels authentic. We are looking and desperately searching for authentic communication. And the second thing being vulnerable does is, your computers aren't making these mistakes. You are. And it's not the perfect script that comes out that makes it quality to other humans. It's the perfect vulnerability that makes it relatable to other humans. The third thing, you got content that genuinely helps other people avoid a similar pitfall. How do you know? You always hear this say, build a solution for the problems you experience. When you create content, you're not creating content for what I think you even necessarily need. I know at some point you're going to need this advice. I don't know if you're dealing with this right now, but I am giving the advice I wish I would have had in this moment, right? So I'm basically providing a solution to the problem I experience. You hear this in software all the time. We should also consider this in terms of marketing. And the fourth thing is it allows me to alchemize and own my own narrative, alchemize my mistakes of my past where I was insufficient and I was less than, and someone could have easily left me as a client and left me behind. I could have gotten horrible reviews, and maybe I did for that one mistake we made or whatever it is, but I can now alchemize that and transform that past failure to not just tolerably acceptable, but actually enriched gold nuggets for you and for me to learn. So remember, your biggest mistake isn't the end of your story. In fact, if anything, the biggest mistake you're making is the beginning of your strongest connections with your audience. I'm Grant Sparks. This has been your Marketing Nudge 21 with HotSpark, Spark Sites, HotMod Influencer Agency, and all of those involved in the ecosystem of HotSpark. Thanks so much. Have a great, great day.